Welcome back to the FloTrack podcast, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. I'm Kevin Sully, joined once again from the Hype Shed in Taylor, Texas. It's Lincoln Shrike. Lincoln, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Yeah, the Hype Shed is a little chilly this morning, but I can confirm it's pretty hyped directly from the source myself. I know there's been some questions about the quality of the internet out here, so we're hoping over this podcast that we can keep things wired in and connected, but we shall find out.
Yeah, so the goal is Lincoln's internet's going to work the entire time. If it doesn't, we're going to cut him off and I'm just going to keep talking. And then he might hear half of what I say. He might hear 30% of what I say. It will make for a better product. I can guarantee you that. The email address is, once again, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and you can watch us on FloTrack.org/FloTrack Podcast. Does that all sound good to you, Lincoln? Are you comfortable with this setup?
It is. And if people are listening and want to know if I broke up and didn't know exactly what Kevin's saying, they can listen for me saying this line. I'll say, yeah, that's right, Kevin. When I'm coming off, if I have no idea, if I have no idea what you just said, that's that is the little line to look for or to listen for, because I'm trying to play it off cool, but I may not know what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Or you can say that again, and then I can take you literally, and I can repeat
literally. Could you please say that again?
So we're going to talk about the Valencia Marathon that's coming up on Sunday, which you can watch live on FloTrack, which is teaming with top talent, both from the United States and the rest of the world. But let's start here with our second pro signing in as many days. Lincoln, Taylor Werner is going pro. Some might say just hours after Gordon and I did a whole podcast talking about how Taylor Werner could be the one to capitalize with Wayne Kaladi going pro. And look at Arkansas making that move towards an indoor title, sweeping up those points in the 5K and the 3K. But that will not be the case. So yesterday's podcast, a bit out of date already.
A professional group in North Carolina sponsored by Puma is not what I had on my college to professional track and field bingo board. Yes, I have one such thing. I am pretty well stunned. I guess I shouldn't be, simply because there's been a lot of new groups popping up, brands that were kind of on the sidelines previously, starting new groups. We can speculate why that is. If Nike's taken a step back and other groups are seeing the opportunity to, have a bigger presence in the track and field world. But, we were always used to taking the top athletes and saying, oh, I wonder if they're going to go to Nike. Maybe not even wondering if they're going to go to Nike. I wonder which group they're going to sign with Nike. Those days appear, at least for the time being, to be over. You don't even know if a new brand will be jumping into the mix all of a sudden. Not that Puma's a new brand, but we don't associate Puma with distance running. I mean, Puma's Usain Bolt, and right now they're Carson Warholm and Mondo Duplantis. It's not distance running that we necessarily associated with it. And particularly, US. Yeah. And it's not a ton of U.S. athletes that are Puma. We got Jenna Prandini. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. I'm sure there are others, but suddenly that's going to change. This is a big deal insofar as I know you're a skeptic to signings being a big deal. You've labeled me a brand guy. I know there's a little malice in those words, but I don't know. The idea now of a pro athlete coming out, and all of a sudden it's not just the Bowerman Track Club, OTC, whatever the group is for Pete Julian, maybe an Adidas signing. I mean, they have your option. You could go to On, you could go to Under Armour with in Flagstaff. Now all of a sudden you can go to Chapel Hill for this group that all we know about it is Taylor Werner's going to be the headlining athlete. The choices are there. And I'm fascinated to see how this continues to play out.
Well, the reason why it's tough to know what to take away from it is because you don't know financially how much money they're putting into these groups. It could be a relatively small investment. It could be massive. But since contract details, are never disclosed in track and field, since group budgets are never public. You don't know. So it's hard to know, hey, is this the mark of a sea change in the sport? Or is this just rotating cast of characters? We saw it yesterday with the New Jersey Track Club losing the Hoka sponsorship, which, they still sponsor the NAZ Elite Group, but that was a big group out there on the East Coast. There were a number of athletes competing there. So it almost seems like one company steps up, another company steps off, and we just go round and around in a circle. So until you actually know hard numbers, it's hard to take away. I mean, Werner, it makes sense she would go pro if you think, okay, well, every year the top 2 or 3 distance runners are going to get professional contracts, and big professional contracts, and then there's going to be some others behind them that land deals as well too. She never won a individual NCAA title, but she got runner-up twice. She had just a great 2019. So it made, she ran the 15:11 indoors, which could have been a collegiate record. And if they just had a race in an Arkansas jersey, it would have been a NCAA record. She's on the come up, and she had a very interesting career in terms of coming out highly touted. She had that terrible car accident, lost some of her confidence when she was coming back. When in 2018 they ran really poorly at NCAAs, and she did herself. They had this team meeting and got everybody together, and they got themselves back to the meet the next year and really exercised those demons. And then, she was a key piece in all 3 championships. Not many people can say that, because if you remember indoors in 2019, when we were there in Birmingham, Lance Harder went up to her before that 3K and said, we need points to clinch the meet. And she went out and did it. Then she goes to outdoors. Her 5K performance clinched the meet for Arkansas. And then she's their number 2 runner in Terre Haute. I don't know how that stuff translates to a pro setting where you're an individual and you're out there, but in terms of competing under pressure situations at a young stage in your development, I can't think of anybody who's done that more frequently recently than Taylor Werner. I mean, the weight of an entire track team is on your shoulders, and you're stepping to the line on a 3K or a 5K, and to deliver as many times as she did, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I believe, her, although it did come down to the 4x4 in 2019 and USC dropped their baton, she came up huge in the outdoor 5,000 as well that same year in Austin, and has continually been a clutch performer. And I think there's a lot of room for growth in the 5,000. Obviously, when you run 15:11 in December, you think, well, this is somebody who could be running in the in the 1440s later that year if everything plays right. I had her penciled in for the Bowerman Track Club. Now, eventually, Bowerman, you would think,
there's no more parking
to stop.
Spaces.
Yeah, I mean, they've literally they've run out. I mean, even the New York Yankees have a budget ostensibly, right? And maybe that is, they're starting to say, we are paying 30 all-star athletes. We cannot afford anything more. I don't know what exactly was the impetus for all this, but I do think it's cool. And maybe, part of the new wave is everybody has seen other athletes, headlining former NCAA stars, getting their own training group and thinking, I want to do that too, and maybe they get an agent that's like, okay, when they're pitching the athlete on their services as a sports management agency, they're saying, I'm going to get you your own group, and you're going to be the name of a brand. That's pretty appealing, you would think, for an athlete. I don't know if that's exactly how that happens, but this generation, it's the me generation, right? No, I'm just kidding. No, but you see the appeal. You could be another big fish in a sea of big fishes at Nike or maybe Adidas. And obviously Puma has huge athletes, but as far as the US distance scene, you're going to be the headlining act at Puma, at least for the time being. That's appealing.
Well, look at Justin Knight a couple years back. Same thing with Reebok, a company that hadn't been doing much in running lately. And you could say he got his own group. I mean, they built it with his former college coach as well, too. Really set up a situation around him. You don't know too much more about this. I mean, regionally, it makes sense. She's from Missouri, went to school in Arkansas, so she gets to stay in that part of the country. Alistair Craig, I've heard. No,
North Carolina
that doesn't count.
No,
it's closer than Oregon. It's closer than Oregon.
Well, it's closer than Oregon.
Yeah. Okay, listen, Missouri man. This is the one time I'll let you fact check me because I've never been to North Carolina. I'm just saying that I don't know. That probably wasn't the deciding factor, but that stuff doesn't hurt when you're staying in that part of the country. And I was gonna say I've heard Alistair Craig is involved. Obviously, Chris Miltenberg being the coach there at UNC is involved, and I just think that we've moved now to we've been joking about North Carolina with NC State and UNC, the collegiate programs being the epicenter of NCAA distance running, it appears, especially on the women's side. But now they're getting pro groups, so I think it's only a matter of time before they get Olympic trials are going to be in the state of North Carolina. U.S. championships. It's the Oregon of the Southeast, I think, is what we're going to start calling North Carolina.
Yeah, and when you throw Vin in Virginia, it's the Eastern Seaboard is I just really want to
some geography.
I just want to say the Eastern Seaboard. Hopefully I can develop my transatlantic accent and we can start speaking in 1920s. The track and fields are coming to the. That was terrible, but I didn't see this coming 2 years ago. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. It's like North Carolina was kind of a forgotten area when it comes to track and field. There's no training groups in North Carolina. I mean, it's a beautiful area. I know Zap out there? Zap. But I mean, okay. We're not taking Zap Fitness seriously when it comes to making teams. Let's be honest. It makes sense. I mean, it's a beautiful part of the country, relatively temperate, but it's just Oregon had been the Hollywood of U.S. track and distance running track and field for so long that you just assume it's going to stay that way. Not the case, apparently. You said you hear Alistair Craig is involved. We can't 100% confirm that, but that's interesting when you talk about him being married to Amy Craig. Whether we have no idea what she's going to do, but you could think there's going to be some other moves and other big names associated with this Puma group, be it young athletes or more veteran types. We'll see.
Well, I think you might see some other people trickle over there when contracts expire at the end of 2020.
Exactly.
Because those notices, if they're not going out, they're going out soon. And there's just such a weird situation this year where contracts are ending in 2020, which was supposed to be the Olympic year, but instead contracts are ending months before athletes are competing and getting ready for the Olympic trials, which puts a lot of people in a weird spot. Again, it's hard to know, how serious it is because you don't know the financial contribution. You knew Puma's financial contribution to Andre DeGrasse because the details of his contract linked, and you said, whoa, man. And then you heard a little bit about Cindy McLaughlin. And then back in the day, you heard about the Allen Webb contract. It got reported and it put a number to it and it associated prominence with those deals. The last couple of years, we haven't really heard much of anything. So you don't really know how much money it is, how much it compares to other shoe companies and how sustainable it is. I wanted to talk a little bit about where this leaves the NCAA because I haven't learned my lesson from yesterday. And now I'm going to make some bold pronouncements.
Assume everyone's going pro, Kevin. Just assume everyone's gone pro.
Okay, so Gordon was right then. Caitlin Toohey is going to win the NCAA title this year. Okay, so here's my new big winner on the distance side. Stanford women. That's my new big winner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were well positioned coming off a good 2019 first year under JJ Clark anyways. But when you take away, one athlete in Kaladi on the track, or excuse me, on who has cross country left, and then Werner on the track. Yeah, we're waiting for a new distance star to emerge now. And there may be more signings in the future, but certainly that program with their 2 stars up there, and then obviously other solid supporting pieces. They still have some room to, even with the loss of Fiona O'Keefe, who's now at New Mexico. Stanford is well positioned for this whenever the NCAA sport of track and field and cross country resume. Yeah,
they're well positioned for sports. Yeah, I was speaking mostly about indoors because cross, obviously Werner didn't have cross. So Gordon's assumption. Are you all right over there? Do you need some water? I know your internet's been holding up, but your throat is failing.
I gotta stop eating peanut butter before this.
In the hype shed. Too much peanut butter in. Yeah, too much peanut butter in the hype shed. Okay.
Eating by the spoonful.
But I'm looking at indoors from last year, and I'm looking at, let's just say the 5,000, where you have McKenna Morley gone, Joyce Cameli, Mercy Chelangat back, Devin Clark gone, Kelsey Camille back, Wayne Kaladi gone, Bethany Haas back, Emily Martin, senior, Katie Izzo back, Kaylee Loge back, Baez back, Amelia Delanis gone, Elizabeth Funderburk of Florida State back, Ava Richardson gone, Maria Metler, and Jessica Drop both have eligibility, at least according to this list that I'm looking at. And in the 3K, kind of similar situation. You got, when you have, Monson gone, when you have Kaladi gone, when you have Werner gone, when you have Whitney Orton gone. I mean, it really is opening up for Donahue, Lawson, of the names that we know. Now, maybe there could be somebody out there who, like Gordon was talking about yesterday, a freshman that we're not familiar with at all, or some sort of underclassman, or somebody who has a breakthrough their senior year. But of the people that are known, it is really, 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 really slim pickings. Even so, if you want to go back to cross country, I looked it up yesterday. Orton now is a top returner in 7th. Then you have, I think Donahue, I think 8. Is it Donahue 8 and then Lawson 11? So you only have 3 of the top 11 coming back for cross country. And for indoors, it's just as scarce. I don't know now who the big winners are, other than you look at Stanford and you think they have a lot of depth. They're going to put together a really good DMR, and some of those women could get titles in the 3 and the 5 now because Kaladi, Werner, etc. are gone. Orton.
Yeah, I don't think we have a clear favorite in any of those distances now. I mean, that's not a shocking thing to say, but with so many people going pro, I mean, Alicia Monson before these two, it's a bunch of athletes who's have not. We're used to athletes kind of knocking on the door and then getting to the top. You kind of thought, oh, it's going to be the time for Werner. She's knocked on the door. Well, now she's left and gone pro, and Kaladi did that before, and it's. I guess you could say athletes like Donahue and Lawson have knocked on the door, but not to the extent that we're used to seeing. And perhaps it's athletes like Chelangat, who's just made a little bit of noise, Cameli, possibly them, but it's an unclear picture for sure, and much more so than the men's side. Who knows? Luis Grijalva may go professional today. Connor Mance may follow. You don't know. But the women's side is certainly pretty blurry right now.
Well, and then you go, if you want to fast forward to outdoors, because I'm pretty confident we're going to have outdoors. Indoors and cross country, still shaky on, but I'm almost positive we're going to have outdoor championship.
Vaccine, baby.
But then you go and you look outdoors, and again, Werner would have had eligibility. Kaladi would have had eligibility. Monson would have had eligibility, although the University of Wisconsin did not extend the extra year. So she could have theoretically, I guess, transferred somewhere. And it leaves just so many holes outdoors for the 5 and the 10. I guess the steeple, a little more clarity, maybe there, maybe 1,500, a little more clarity with Orton coming back. But it's, as Gordon is saying, because he's trying to put together these rankings, you're flying blind a lot of the time. And I think it's even harder now because the few people you did know about are going pro.
Yeah. And obviously you take the money when it's there, but I'm wondering what you think, why all these athletes are going pro now instead of are they just taking, one in the hand is worth two in the bush. Like they don't know when technically NCAA competition is going to resume. So even if they could improve their stock, hypothetically, they're just going to go because it's like, I don't even know if we're going to have an NCAA season. So might as well, take this. And I guess a lot of athletes have also graduated too, but the idea that there was going to be athletes hanging around to have their moment in the sun, to get their NCAA title if they haven't, as opposed to just taking the money and going pro, has not materialized. Tyler Day on the verge of competing for an NCAA title, gone. Joe Klecker, gone. Werner, could have been there, could have gotten a title. She's just going to go for it. It's interesting to me. I think just there's so much uncertainty. You're just like, it's an Olympic year. Even if I'm not going to make a team, I've got to have a presence out there, and I've got to get with a group right now because there's restrictions on practice in college. There's just too many roadblocks right now to success for a distance runner. And if you have a shot to get a contract, you just got to take it. It seems like.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that'd probably be true in any year. If you have the shot to get a contract, are you going to wait a year and risk injury? How much do you stand to gain monetarily? Okay, so someone like Werner, she's gotten second twice. She stays and then she wins. How much does that up her value? Okay, maybe marginally, but is it worth the risk? And you talk about, when you think about going pro and you compare it to other sports, football, basketball, what have you. They need to stay and they need to, develop their game and get better at this level and get reps before moving on. Because what good is it just to sit on the bench at the higher levels? Well, that's not the case in running. You're still running no matter where you're going. So it's not like you're missing out on reps. You're going to be – Wayne Kaladi was going to run in this race this weekend in California, this 10,000, whether or not she got paid for it or not. So you might as well get paid for it. She was going to wear a New Mexico jersey or You're just going to keep developing. And I don't think anybody's saying – now there are some extreme examples where you could say, well, yeah, that person would have benefited from being in a college system, but – is anybody going to argue that the people that we're talking about needed more time in college to hone their craft? No, they knew it. They were mature. Many of them have gotten their degrees, so if they had educational goals, they attained those, and now they get to live out their dream and train professionally. When you mention Werner's 15:11, I just think about how much the sport has changed since last December, because I remember you and I were talking, or maybe it was Gordon, about Werner and Izzo, and I was thinking, oh man, like they're trials, they're contenders to make the Olympic team, and I think they still are, but that was in the 1450 get you in the ballpark, and then Shelby Houlihan, Kirscher Schweizer, everybody on Bowerman just kicked that door down this summer to where it seems 1510 is not going to cut it. 1510 is not going to cut it. And I'm not saying that was part of her decision. I'm sure she knew she was going to have to run insanely fast. But the women's 5, and I think by extension the women's 10 right now, it's so much more difficult than it was a couple of years ago to make a team. That you don't look at 15 low the same way as you did before. That number, that perspective has completely changed with all of what the Bowerman women have done, what Eleanor Purrier did in Doha. The list goes on and on.
Yeah, unless you do what I'm doing, is put 2019 stats into 2020 numbers, and you say, maybe that 1511 indoors, that's worth 1447 when we move it into 2020 or 2021. Based on not only the two Houlihan and Schweizer running in the 1420s, but you also had like you said, with Al Purrier running in the 1440s, Craney in the 1440s. Frazier. I mean, I'm not saying Werner's necessarily as good as them right now. They've had time to be under Jerry's system. That not Purrier, but all those women have had time to run in pro competitions, so Werner hasn't. but I don't think she's also 25 seconds behind them either, and she won that 15-11 race. So she may not be a favorite right now to make the Olympic team, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me. And it looks like she's going to put herself in the best possible position. That team's going to be hard to make for everyone outside of if Houlihan competes, intends to run the 5,000. It's going to be hard for everybody not named Houlihan and Schweizer to make that team. There's one spot at that point. And there's 5 to 10 women who could be, fully capable of doing that. So it was never going to be easy, but just stepping back to, when we try to deduce where these athletes are going to go, I remember when we interviewed Taylor Werner way back in the day, I think during the 2019 season. Sorry if I'm breaking up there. When we interviewed Werner, we had talked about, I think the summer before, she had been running with some of the Bowerman women, like been running with Courtney Frericks. And so I just thought, this is easy. She's going to go to Bowerman. And it just seems like they're not going to sign all the top athletes like they have in the past, or the opportunities to get at your own group and go do your own thing is more prevalent than it would have been previously. But it's kind of cool because I think recently we've complained, it's just so predictable where everyone's going to go. That has seemingly changed. There could be a new brand jumping in the fray here, and it's going to be also just optically nice that when it comes to the U.S. trials, there's going to be a bunch of different kits represented. I know it doesn't really matter, but the Monaco 1500, this is not going to be. This isn't just going to be everybody wearing the latest Nike kit, which is just kind of nice. Obviously, the team element doesn't matter, but I don't know. It's easier to take the sport seriously when it does look like people are just wearing a bunch of when people are wearing different uniforms, and it's like, there could be legitimate rivalries, I suppose, and not just like which 3 Bowerman women are going to make it. It's just, I don't know. It adds it's closer to track and field resembling other sports in my eyes. So I like it.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're a brands guy. I'm a kit guy, though, so I can get behind your take there. Because
you are the expert.
I did my kit rankings last year. It's exciting to see. Puma will be entering the fray here. Let's see what On comes up with. I'm holding off until 2021 to see their new kits. But there's this Dark Sky Running group. Like, what do they come with? Before I had to choose from basically 8 versions of the Nike jersey and was ranking it against itself. It was a Nike inner squad meet at that point. Yeah, as we were saying before, it's just other than running out of parking spaces with Bowerman, eventually it's just like there's too many people to coach, and they have Schumacher and Flanagan there, but they have a big roster, like a legitimately big roster between men and women there, spanning a lot of different event groups as well too. And it's reasonable. I kind of laugh anytime you hear a coach talk about, I got 3 people in the group. I don't know if I want to take on another one. That's tough. That's 4. That's 4 whole people. But with Bowerman, they legitimately have a massive operation going there. So I could see not wanting to add it. Yeah, exactly. And I could also see, I don't know the financial situation of Nike. That's one thing I don't know. In my reporting, I did not stumble upon the financial situation of Nike in terms of their desire to invest in clubs. We do know that. Well, we did know, they're very receptive. We do know that there's been leadership changes, and some of the people who were big proponents of track and field are no longer in those positions of power. We don't know if they've been replaced by track and field friendly folks or not. It would not surprise me if they look at their budget and say, okay, we're spending a lot on track and field groups, so let's just keep it where it's at this year, fiscal year 2021. Whereas some of these other companies might say, hey, it's the Olympic year. Who can we get? Oh, okay, let's get this person. Let's throw a couple bucks their way and see what happens.
100%. And I think the departure of John Capriati at Nike, who was instrumental in their growth as the worldwide leader in track and field, if you will, as far as a shoe brand is concerned. I don't think, the fact that there's other groups popping up that are trying to emerge is necessarily coincidental. I don't know that to be sure. But I'm just wondering if and feeling like other brands are seeing an opportunity to have a bigger presence. Everyone always talks about those in the know about Capriati's power within, U.S., global track and field, but obviously based in Oregon. So with him gone, that certainly has a strong blinking light of like maybe Nike's priorities are changing. And if that's the case, well, other athletes may be choosing to take their talents elsewhere as opposed to just automatically going to Nike. And I maybe Bowerman is, as you'd say, out of parking spots. I tend to think this is you maybe think it the same way. This is an instructive from above saying, okay, we've been running with 0.001% interest rates for 2.
Oh, Lincoln, we lost it. You were right on the cusp of a great point about interest rates, and then our first Lincoln audio fail here. And I wanted to know what he said. I think it's important too when you think about Bowerman to think not everybody has been there for their entire career. So it's possible that some of these folks start their career somewhere else and then eventually gravitate back towards the behemoths out there, the elephants in the room that occupy so many roster spots. So where you start your career obviously is not necessarily, where you end your career. Shalane Flanagan didn't start with Bowerman. Now that was a little different situation. She was with Nike, but Kate Grace is there. She didn't start with them. So Gabrielle W. Stafford just started with Bowerman. So there's a possibility of getting more, once people develop, then they kind of jump into Bowerman. So Bowerman's always going to occupy, two spots or so in every event in the women's distance scene from now until forever. It's just a matter of cycling different people in and different people out. There he is. He's back now. Lincoln, tell me about interest rates. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right, Kevin. I just thought
we almost did it. We almost did it. What's the yield today? What's the 10-year T-note average?
I just think Bowerman and Nike were given, essentially no budget over the years, and now maybe they have a budget. That's the gist of my point. And so that's why there's possibility. Same with the artist formerly known as NOP and maybe OTC. Now there may be some restrictions, and that's why you could be seeing some changes. I have no way of actually knowing that, but that seems to be. It's hard to look at the change with all these groups popping up and the departure of John Capriati and think that that one thing has not led to the other.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Valencia Marathon on Sunday, live on FloTrack. Jordan Hasay in the marathon, Emily Sisson in the half, but this field is just ridiculously deep on both sides. The men's marathon features Berhanu Legesse, number 4 all time, with a 2:02:48 PB. The women have just a plethora of sub 220 folks, along with Jocelyn Jepkosky, who's already won a major. In the half marathon, looks like we're going to get Latensabet Gede. Maybe she's going to strengthen her resume for Athlete of the Year after the award is given, because the award, I think, is given on Saturday. So little addendum there. And then on the men's side, Ronix Kiprutu and Jacob Kiplima. Let's start, though, with Sisson. Lincoln. Now, we haven't seen her race since the marathon trials. Supposedly, she's targeting the 67:25 American record, which is held by Molly Huddle. Do you think she gets it?
Yeah, it's tough to know based on having no fitness recently. If you haven't raced since the trials, there's just absolutely no idea, other than the fact that if you have to go with the old adage, if you're coming to this race, you're under the assumption that you're ready to run fast, particularly in this field. I mean, she's not going to be up there with the 65-minute runners, but I have to think that she's ready to do it. And, she's just come so close previously that I I have pretty good confidence that she's going to get this done in such a strong field. You know, to come within 5 seconds in 2019, she knows how to run in a race that, you know, she's not leading from the front. You know, she's kind of going to be chasing some of these other athletes. I think she's ready to do this. There's no, it's not like she's building up to a marathon in 8 weeks or 6 weeks. Like, there's no absolute need to do this unless you think you're ready to run really fast. And if she's ready to run fast, well, she's 5 seconds away as her personal best. So I tend to think you would do a much more low key half marathon if you just needed to get a race in, unless you are fit and ready to challenge that American record.
Yeah, I agree. You don't travel that far. And also
in a pandemic
with her, yeah. And with her, this is the sweet spot distance for her. We've seen her thrive at the half marathon before. I think she'll find somebody to run with. I think some people are going to fall off that top group because they're going out so hard, and she'll be able to chase. She's always struck me as somebody who can maintain a solid pace even when she's by herself, much like Molly Huddle, her training partner, can do as well. So I'm bullish on this. I think she breaks 67:20, and I think it's going to lead well into the Olympic year where she's going to try to make, we think, the team in the 10,000. So I think Emily Sisson is going to break this American record on Sunday. What do you think about Hasay? What would be success for Jordan Hasay? Because this field is so good and the course supposedly is so fast. You'd say, okay, well, this is her time to PR, but she's coming off of a tough race at the trials. Is it just try to get it in the middle of the fairway here with this one?
I think so. This is talk about just, I know there haven't been many opportunities, but just throwing yourself right back into the fire here. I think coming away healthy would be a huge step in the right direction for her. But obviously she's going to be looking beyond that. This race is going to go really, really fast. The winners may run, it probably going to run sub 2:19. She's not clearly anywhere near to do that. 2:24, I think, would be a success. That's arbitrary, but she's run way, way, way faster than that in Chicago. But it's just knowing how much she struggled with injuries and, having to grind through just to get to the finish line in Atlanta. Putting it in the fairway primarily is finishing, but running a solid but not spectacular time. I mean, I just don't see her going out incredibly fast. I think she's going to play this a little bit more conservative and try to feel good over the second half. And I think somewhere around the 2:24 number would be a step in the right direction. Now, would it surprise me if she goes faster? No, but it would be more surprising if she went faster than that than it would be if she just DNFs. That's just been the struggle she's had the last 14 months. So it's not going to be flashy if she runs 2:24 because she's going to get beat by, I don't know, 10 to 15 people, but maybe more. But that would be a good step in the right direction for her building into 2021. And, maybe you get back into, I don't know what's going to be available in the spring, but you get ready to go to one of the courses eventually that she's familiar with, like a Chicago, and then you're ready to be the Jordan Hasay of 2017, of 2018. Yeah.
Weather dependent, I think she can go quicker than that. I think she could run 2:22 mid, having a B+ race. I think she's that good. And the course supposedly is that quick.
Yeah, I just worry about the fact that she ran 74 minutes in a half marathon, whenever that was last month outside of somewhere in Oregon, when Galen Rupp ran 60 minutes on a similar course or the same course. I know Hasay is one of those cases where we've been able to really see that you can't always take her lead up half marathon and extrapolate it to what she's going to do in the marathon. But 74 minutes is not very good. And obviously that's 2:28 pace. So is she really ready to run 2:22? I don't know. I don't think we're seeing 100% Jordan Hasay returning like she was in 2017 in Boston, Chicago, or 2019 in Chicago, or 2018. I forget all the years, but that time
so many
was
years.
worrisome. Yeah, that 74-minute performance. I know it was cold and
I think it was a training run. I'm not going to put just because she had a timing mat and put a uniform on. I'm not going to put too much stock into it and pretend it was a real race. She was running along a bike path in Cottage Grove, Oregon, when it comes down to it, in the midst of marathon training. Rupp's not marathon training. I think Rupp was legitimately going for it. I think Hesse has. I mean, how many times did Meb run slower than it seemed like it runs slower than the pace he eventually ran for the marathon in a tune-up half? I think that happens often enough. So I think, again, like Sisson, I don't think she's going to go all the way over there if she's not ready to go. I think she has a little bit more urgency because the fact that she needs to wait until next fall probably to get into a race that meets the demands of her level of skill. And whereas, Sisson is just kind of going to go to the trials, and she can get that's going to be the most important race of her season next year, presumably. What about this men's field though? On the half, Ronix apparently, and your guy Jacob Kiplimo, who's cemented number one Jacob of 2020 in an upset.
Wow.
But yeah. Those are some names in there, and I can't find the full list, so I cannot name you other names, but I'm guessing there's 10 other guys who have run either 59 or 58 here, it seems like.
Yeah, Valencia is a special place for Ronix Kiprutu, as it is for a lot of distance runners. Apparently, it just seems like the ground is different there. The air, the water is different, because Ronix Kiprutu, although I believe it'll be his half marathon debut, has run 26:24 over 10K on the roads somehow. So I would say yes, it will be his debut. I think he's going to be prepared to battle with the world half marathon champion in Kiplimo. These are two guys you would think are going to be battling for medals in the 10,000 in Tokyo coming up next year, behind or maybe even surpassing Cheptegei. So to me, this is a great view of maybe the marathon stars of the next couple years. I know a half marathon's not a marathon, but man, these guys both seem very well suited to the roads. And for me, I'm going to pick Kiplimo just based off winning the world half title. I know Kiprutu wasn't there, but I think this will be a fantastic race. That's going to be, could very well be below 58:30.
Jamal Yimmer is also in there, and he's run 58:33, which is the fifth best time in history. He did it at Valencia when he finished second in 2018. 58:01 is the world record. Should we be thinking about that? Should that be in our mind?
It's tough. That's so fast. I want to put a little bit more. Yeah. No, I just some are fast, some are 58:01. You're assuming then somebody's going to run 57 minutes. Although they could run 58 flat.
58 flat.
They could run 58 flat. But if you're going to break it, I think
you're nailing these.
I tend to think it's not going to be broken. I would say solidly the winner is going to be in the 58:20s. But
okay,
do you think the world record's going to fall?
I think it could, and this would be the race to do it, where you have just enormous depth, and you have someone like Ronix, who, say that 10K road time again, 26 what? I laugh every time I hear
24.
It. That's not a
24.
That's not a real road time. No, it's not. It can't be real. So you have 26. You have a 26:24 guy. You have Kiplimo, who won the world half and ran really fast on the track this year. So he's obviously got the speed element. And then you have Ymer coming at it from the perspective of, hey, he's already run a fast half marathon. I think this would be the type of race where you would see somebody do it. Weather dependent, course dependent, all that other stuff. But I mean, he's 58:01. 58:01 is out there, 17 seconds faster than the next best time. Yeah. So I'm not sneezing at that. I just think that anytime someone runs 26:24 in a road 10K, I'm going to like their chances in a half marathon to
and
to run quick.
And we know if the world record does go down, the track and field community, the international track and field community, will react with cool heads and rational opinions about the footwear
Ronix
that
got
the
Adidas.
athletes have.
Ronix has Adidas,
Doesn't count.
We're immune from the takes if Ronix does it.
Yeah.
Kiplimo's in Nike?
Yeah.
I'm assuming Kiplimo's in Nike. Okay.
Yes, he is.
The marathon itself, though, is just like, it's like if London had an even bigger budget, basically. I mean, it doesn't include Eliud Kipchoge, but the names on here, you have to go something like Lisa DeCisa's like the 9th dude named on the list. Like, how does that happen?
Well,
it's remarkable.
Jeffrey Karui, who, has won Boston and been a rup slayer, is like 20th down here. Now he's only run 206. He's better than that. He's more of a championship style runner, but yeah, this is a ridiculous field. Minus even when you don't have the guys who were up there in London and obviously Kipchoge and Bekele, this is completely outrageous. The amount of fast times, however many guys it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, it's like 10 guys under 205. Legesse's run 202.48. Obviously, we didn't really pay too much attention to him in 2019 because he was behind Bekele. But Lawrence Chirono is in this. I think you'd almost have to call him the favorite, although there's been it's tough to know because so many it's been such a long time since people have raced. Yeah, this is fascinating. This is albeit not a world marathon major. This is a better field. I think of kind of in golf they always talk about the majors, the best, even though the majors are the biggest deal in golf, the 4 majors, the Players Championship usually has the best field, and that's kind of what this seems to be. Now, this is brought on by the pandemic and so few racing opportunities in the marathon, but yeah, man, this is as good as it's going to get outside of a world marathon major.
It's like a name brand Dubai with the depth, and I think we're going to see a Valencia Marathon is free to use that slogan if they want. I think we're going to see a similar race to Dubai where we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see a world record or anything, which is not a bold statement, but I think we're going to see some record for depth. X amount of people under 204 and X amount of people.
I'm selling that. I don't care about that.
Under 203. I know. I'm just saying that's going to happen. I'm giving you some predictions. That's going to happen. I think Sisson's going to get the world record in the American record.
American record.
Whoa. American record. The men are going to get, and I think the men. I hate to be all weather dependent. I hate to be the meteorologist on the show, but I think we could see our first 57-minute half marathon.
Wow. Yeah. I'll wait to see the pressure readings, the visibility before I make that pick. You're kind of sounding like Stefan from SNL. I'd slow down here. Sorry, that's a shout out to Jonathan Galt. These are fantastic races, and I'm eager to see how they play out. I mean, the women's race is just as good. I would think we have the half marathon stars and Jeb Cheer jumping in the fray. Jeb Koskai's in there. And then you mix it up with Rudy Aga, Berhane Debaba. I'm just reading names. But when you look at these PRs, so many women under 220, this is bound to be very fast. My threshold for the men is I want to see a sub 203. That's what will get my juices flowing. Although you think we'll see that for sure?
Yeah, I think we're going to see some records for depth. I'm trying to look up let me find
I'm interested. I want to see 4,000 people under 210. That's what I can. No. Just kidding.
No. So there's been. Hold on. Okay, including repeats. Right. There's been 6 sub 203 performances in history. Obviously, not including Monza and not including Vienna for Eliud Kipchoge. I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see 3 more added to the list just from Valencia. It's going to be one of those.
Wow. Well, who you got? Who are you thinking? Legesse?
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Does it matter? Just 3 people.
3?
Throw it. Yeah, it's a shot in the dark. I don't know. Anybody. Just you have this. This is like Dubai. You have in Dubai. Well, 2 things can happen. You get so many fast people together that they start getting worried about the win, and then they all look at each other, and then they don't run as fast as they could. I don't know what the prize structure is in terms of time bonus versus place, bonuses, but that's one scenario. The other scenario is they all just go crazy and everybody just feeds off of each other, and there's just a whole bunch of one-upsmanship and a whole bunch of people crater and DNF, but the people who survive, a lot of them run under, set massive PRs and run under 203. And I think it's going to be that one. I don't think they're going to sit around and look at each other. I think they're going to go for it. I think the pace is going to be crazy from the beginning, weather permitting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you're saying one person, if you're putting the line, okay, 1 or 1.5 for number of people under 203, I would go over that, is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the line at 1 is exciting. I mean, we're just assuming there's, I'm old fashioned. I'm still surprised when there's a sub 203. Has everybody been able to get their full training in? I guess we can assume that, but that's enough to generate a headline on FloTrack.org for me. I mean, 203. I'm not too snob. Sub 203 is. That's still a big deal. I remember when Jeffrey Kimetto ran 202.57 and the world stopped. Jeffrey Kimetto.
What was his name?
Also
Dennis Kimetto was his name.
Dennis Kimetto. His brother, though, Jeffrey ran. I'm just kidding.
Well, okay. Look at these other sub 203s in history, right? So the same day Kipchoge runs 201. Oh, sorry, no, that wasn't a repeat there. That does not prove my point. Bekele and Berhanu Legesse, that's the same race, correct? Kipchoge and Mohamed Garamu, that was the same race. So of the 6, 4 of them happened in, they were paired together, grouped together, which obviously makes sense. You're going to have people serving as essentially rabbits for everybody else. So I'm excited to hear that you'll write this up, because I'm actually going to be not going to be at a computer on Sunday morning. So I'm excited to read your article about this on FloTrack.org if there's a sub 203.
Yeah. You can eagerly anticipate. I'm all in for the Valencia Marathon, which folks in the US can watch on FloTrack worldwide. But people in the US too. Listen, I'm the best PR voice for this website. I just get facts wrong, incorrect. Call him Jeffrey Kimetto. Is that the ultimate Dennis Kimetto thing? Is when I'm talking about him as a track and field media person and calling him Jeffrey Kimetto?
Yeah,
he may. So, anyways, excited to watch this race.
You and Gordon are back tomorrow, and I'm going to read a list because we started a document here on topics. So these are the things that Gordon and Lincoln will talk about tomorrow, and I want the audience to hold them accountable, so that way we don't get I don't know, whatever you guys, more trades or something like that. So the track meet preview, a lot of big names there too.
Yeah.
You have World Cross Country moving to 2022. New York Roadrunners canceling the NYC half. And then the NCAA, Gordon will sink his teeth into this one. NCAA considering making NCAA indoors 3 days this year and then splitting conference meets into 2 weekends. So that's what you get tomorrow. But you could talk for the whole time on the track meet. That's going to be fun. Gordon gets to talk about Louis G. It'll be a good one.
I'm excited. Yeah, and I do think he will talk at length about the possibility of 3 days and what that could mean for how athletes try and quintuples and what this, that, and the other. And somehow that'll make NAU a bigger favorite in his eyes. I'm always eager to hear the way he rationalizes minor changes. So look forward to that, folks. You're going to listen to tomorrow's pod.
He'll have Oliver Hoare putting back on a Wisconsin jersey to run 6 more races. Poor guy. All right, that's it for this edition of the FloTrack podcast. Thanks to Alon for producing. Lincoln and Gordon will be back tomorrow. Talk to you guys later.